Hello, I'm Larry Johnson. Welcome again to the International Club for Unity with the sponsorship of TOS and the cooperation of a great technical staff behind it. The goal is to promote a dialogue between prominent Russians who are influential in culture, politics, the military, the economy, and to give Americans an insight into what Russia is really like. Because coming from America, I can tell you, they don't understand Russia at all. And with us today, we have Ruslan Ostashko.
Yeah.
Is that the right pronunciation? Okay. So you're like a native of Donetsk, correct?
Yeah.
Which part of were you born in Donetsk or just?
I was born in Donetsk, but I was growing up in Crimea.
Oh, okay.
To me, what is going on right there, it's a surprising story. My dad is a military guy, and at the moment when my mother was pregnant, my dad was in pre-Baltics. She goes to her mother to have a baby there. She's from there. Myself, I'm a baby. I'm going to Baltics. Then I'm a bit grown to go to Moscow region, then go to Crimea. That's where I grow up, and that's all things break loose there.
Yeah.
Great a mixture, a lot of blood, a lot of ideology, and etc.
So you were just barely a teenager or becoming a teenager when the Soviet Union collapsed.
Yes, to me, Soviet Union was like I saw how it fell apart. It was a great pain, and the biggest remembrance I have, that was a Chernobyl catastrophe. As bad as it was because then we were in Crimea, and everybody was afraid that the Dnieper was dirty, and the water was given to Crimea. It was the water from Dnieper. Then we were drinking the water that they brought by the water trucks. And then we thought that bad things were happening. I was a kid, really a kid, but this memory still resonates with me. And when you go to Donetsk and you see the water trucks, I remember those Chernobyl times, because today already for 4 years there's no water in Donetsk.
Yeah, that was let's see, that was May of 1986, I believe, because I was working at the Central Intelligence Agency then. I was in what was known as the Central American Task Force, but I remember we were always reading the intelligence reports every day, trying to say, good Lord, what's going on? Just out of curiosity, have you seen the HBO, American television, did like a 5-6-part series on Chernobyl?
Yes, I have seen the whole soap opera, yes. Very quality job. I want to believe that, but there's a lot of lies there, because they showed the decision of our political head and the commanders. It's like they were politicized things where they had to hide their information. Believe me, I talked to the people who were the liquidators, and I saw how it took place. Right there, right then, in the places that could have been under the influence through the water, Crimea included. Nobody understood what was going on, and everybody was in one thing, united. We have to save the people, and nobody then. At the level of society, they did not think about political decisions, but movie made it way too much politics there.
Yeah, they can't help themselves. But actually, I thought the way the bravery of the firefighters was portrayed, and the coal miners in particular, they were, they were sort of, I think, the quintessential soul of the Russians. This, we're going to get the job done, and you're not going to tell us what to do.
You say that Americans don't understand the Russians. I think that because we as Russian nation, to carry the message to Americans that they heard that, but they don't believe it, that we have a self-sacrifice quality in the name of the goodness of the society. It's a norm. And for us, for a lot of people, so life, there's no more precious than life.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We treat like life very easy. But when it's necessary, when there's a need, we're ready to give a self-sacrifice to save. At that moment, we don't think us as Russian
Yeah,
men.
yeah,
You know, that's what we're criticized for. You don't think about the family, you think about this, or how to protect this and protect that, and how to make your career. But this is the way we are. And it's a big difference.
sure.
I think that Americans would think that what they give the security to my family when me as a also Americans risk their lives, so they would get the insurance or that, but it's in our blood.
Yeah.
We value the life, but we are ready to risk.
What about, so every year, May 9th, the March of the Immortals. Do you ever participate in that, and do you carry a photograph?
Honestly, myself, I was not in Moscow ever the parade. It's very hard for me. I was at this parade in my Sevastopol. I dream about go to Donetsk. But many years we don't have these parades in its offline due to safety reasons. But we always put our pictures of our grandparents in the social media. We always talk about that, but to me it was a personal shock when I think it was 2019 or 2020 when Facebook started deleting pictures. When we started before 9th of May
They
putting...
were deleting the pictures?
Yes, 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 on my personal page, you know, it happens so that in the informational area, a lot of things, you know, they multiply its importance, that everybody is bad at the West. Not everybody's bad at the West. But when you personally face this, that you think is not just, you understand how we don't value the ability of Western media to influence us. You know, the famous victory when they put the flag over Reichstag. They deleted that picture. And you can see it on different media, that picture, but Facebook deleted it. There was a big action, and nobody noticed that at the West. To them, it was a little chop change. To us, it's a genetical memory, and when we spoke about the self-sacrifice, that's exactly what I meant, that genetical memory, because us, as each generation, that's what we are taught, to be worthy of our ancestors and to be better.
Who among your, what was the experience, if you feel like recounting it? Sorry to probe personally, but with your grandparents' experience in the Great Patriotic War.
Of course I can. On my father's line, my grandfather, he's a military. He went through Russian-Finnish War. He went through World War II. He was at the KGB and KVD. It's like supposedly just a regular borderline. You know, they counted them as a punitive departments, special forces, but really they did not were what they called to be. He was wounded in World War II. And actually, my life is quite connected with Crimea. He was the last one who was leaving Crimea. Those people, they were covering those NKVD, and he was the first one when we were returning Crimea. And he kept serving in Yalta as militia, and he continued to work and study there. My father on the mother's lane, he added 1 year. He was 17. He said he was 18, and that's a custom.
Yeah.
It's a custom in Russia. He went to serve. He was freeing Eastern Europe, and then worked for many years as a regular ambulance driver. He helped people. My father's military. I am myself finished from the military institute. My father still tells me you would have been a colonel or a general. He says, sorry, Dad, I'm a TV host.
Well, yeah, I was fortunate let's see, it was March when I was here with Judge Napolitano, and we went to the World War, I forget the official name of the World War II Museum. It's in the western part of Moscow. and really it was one of the most impressive museum I've been in. It is deeply moving.
You have watched the modern museum, which now, the last 10, 15 years, our museums became very modern, technological,
Yeah,
new publications. And I remember our museums. I was growing in Sevastopol, and I graduated when my father was in the Navy of the Black Sea coast, and we lived in Sevastopol. That was already Ukraine. And you cannot imagine what kind of labor we had to do, perform from Sevastopol. We had to add to keep the historical memory about our victory then in the beginning of 90s. In the end of 90s in Sevastopol, they tried to give the memory lane named after the Ukrainian Navy. Nobody knows that at the West, but you know, Sevastopol people, they took it off and threw it in the sea for one reason. There was no Ukrainian Navy.
Yeah.
It did not exist. But when, about a good, soft American power, how it influenced us as a small boys. I graduated in 96. In 95, American Navy boat went into the Crimea, and American sailors went for a walk, and we kids, 15, 16, 17 years old, you know, it's shameful to remember that, but we have to remember that we ran to Americans, sailors, and say, let's change. And we offered them our pins. Some were given medals of our grandparents to exchange for chewing gum, for jeans, because then we thought it was friendship, an exchange of some kind of memories or historical things. To us, gum is a medal from the grandfather, and it's a tragedy.
yeah,
But we had it. We went through it. We were able to stand against. But when it happened, and I remember now, when we work at CIA, it was the part of the soft power to show friendship. So us would be like buddies, like Indians.
yeah.
You know, they brought to the Indians glass, and instead they would get the
Blankets
gold.
and trinkets, yeah.
Yes, and it worked very well, because for us it was all new. We didn't have a chewing gum. 93, 94. Soviet regular Ukrainian Soviet boy didn't have a chewing gum, but I wanted to have one. We had planes, our own planes. We had tanks. We had spaceships. We had submarines, but we didn't have a chewing gum.
Yeah.
We didn't have jeans, and that really killed the Soviet Union.
I saw it actually firsthand. I was in Kyiv in August, September of 1994. And again, I remember seeing, you know, some of the soldiers, the uniforms were threadbare, the shoes were worn out. You know, you could tell it was, in fact, I came away with the impression, you know, I said, we've been told all these years to fear the Soviet Union, and here they are in collapse. It was sad.
Yes, exactly. I started. 96, I went to the military college in Moscow, borderline. 98, I had exchange with America, with West Point. And I was one of those people who was supposed to go for the exchange. I had good grades. I had straight A's. Strange it sounds. But the best Russians were sent there to exchange. But we understood we were hired. Something went off then, but I have to give to our opponent, because Americans were trying to squeeze everything and anything out of us.
Yes.
Ideologically, people resources. And you can't blame American then, because it's rationally goes to the external policies. If you have an ability to take everything, they'll take everything. And you know, I want to ask your opinion about that. A lot of people in the West think that big problem lies in a Russian human being as having a wide soul, a good mind, kind heart. And a war with Napoleon was 1812, when in 14 we were in Paris. Our Russian officers, we played cards with French people, you know, playing cards.
Yeah.
And when French officers lost, we believed their word that they would pay the debt. and they said you had a legal ability to just burn Paris, take out everything, but you didn't do that. And by that, you showed your weakness. They told us the same about the World War II, when we had a possibility do everything with Europe like this, but we didn't do that.
Yeah.
What do you think Americans would do?
Yeah, no, I think it's my experiences in Latin America and in Spanish, there's an expression, they say que se confunde el bueno con el buenudo. They confuse being good with being a fool or being weak. And I think one of the distinguishing characteristics of the Russians, and it's not just Putin, but they tend to have a lot of respect for the law and uphold international law, and are not going to cheat and take advantage of a situation. And unfortunately, in my country, there is a tendency to want to cheat and to take advantage of those who are foolish enough to trust in the law.
What for? What's the reason? Why cheat? Why
Just
why
to be
lie?
in charge, to be in control. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, the United States had the chance to behave as Abraham Lincoln did at the end of the Civil War, because his words in his final address, his inauguration address, where he said, with malice towards none, charity for all. And he was looking at how do we heal the wounds of the division in which we were killing brother, cousin, we're killing each other. And he was trying to bring healing to it, and he was killed, in part because he was trying to bring that healing. The United States could have really embraced Russia and said, hey, we spent 70 years in a Cold War. That's over now. We're now friends. We're now genuine allies. But, you know, the United States still needed an enemy to justify a multi-million-dollar defense budget, or now it's up to $1 trillion.
But together to trade, make more money is more profitable. Look, Trump is trying to talk about it, that military budget is good. Military industry brings money to economy, but what is the price? Yeah. You can create together. You can go into space. We have international station. We have big plans. We have great necessities in energy in the world because due to the technologies of AI, and great calculations machines. Without Russia's gas and technology and energy carriers, it doesn't look so profitable. How come Americans don't want to think and look that way?
You know, the contrast between Russia, let's take Russia 1999, United States 1999, and now today, 26 years later. What has happened in that time frame? In that period of time, the literacy rate in the United States has fallen. So now, right now, present 79% can read, which means we have almost 21% that cannot. Whereas in Russia, the literacy rate's 98%. That's universal literacy.
If I say that on the U.S. TV, that Russia TV, they say that fake news, propaganda.
But it's true. And of that 79%, the 50% read at the 6th grade level or lower. So yes, and the danger in that means they really don't have good critical thinking skills. The trillions of dollars that the United States has spent in foreign wars, in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Somalia, other African countries, and well, let's start in 1999 in Serbia, the former Yugoslavia. All that money that's been devoted towards foreign wars, and latest the billions that have been spent in Ukraine, means that money is not available to repair the infrastructure. So if go to a New York City, you know, New York City is supposedly the crown jewel of the United States. You go into their subways. It's like going into a sewer. Rats, leaky pipes, old, ancient trains. The only artwork down there is graffiti that's written on the walls. Compare that to any metro, any underground train system in Russia, in Moscow, or St. Petersburg. You think you're in an art museum, and you are. So it's the difference between where the priorities were. And most importantly, and I credit Vladimir Putin for this. I don't know how he did it. And it's, you know, I'm not here as some Putin fanboy. But the fact that as a young man, and a lawyer no less, because I don't have the highest regard for lawyers, comes into office, figures out early on that the oligarchs have to be reined in because the money that is needed to rebuild Russia has to be focused on the people. And you went from an era in which the average lifespan of a Russian man had dropped from like 62 to 56. Alcoholism, suicide, unemployment, middle class, you know, had fallen to like 15% of the country was considered middle class. Now we look 26 years later. Solid middle class, roads are filled with cars, unemployment at the lowest level, public works, the city works. This is a city of 17 million people. It works, it's safe. You can walk the streets, you're not always looking over your shoulder. In the United States, you can't say that. I can take you to New York City, to Baltimore, to Philadelphia, to Washington, D.C., to Atlanta, to Los Angeles, to San Francisco. In San Francisco, they've started cleaning it up, but they used to give you a map so you could identify where humans were defecating. And it's like, that's not how, who wants to be like that? So what I've seen in Russia now is they've set an example of leadership to the world of, instead of wasting our money on foreign wars, we're focused on building up the people. And then someone would come back and say, well, what about this war in Ukraine? Well, that, in my view, was provoked by the West, confronting Russia with an existential threat that they had to deal with. But it's not fighting it because we want to build up the defense industry.
But no matter that you have such great data about the U.S., but we understand that it's a leading economy from an intellectual point and technologies and finances. So it comes out that America is not profitable to have a lot of educational people to understand the picture of the world. Is that so? What's supposed to happen to Americans so they would look differently? So today, the technologies are there, money is there. Production goes from Europe, including to US. Then everything fits them. They don't need a smart American. Everything is well there, enough 10% smart to rule the other 90.
Well, this is where I will criticize Russia for being very bad at public relations in terms of educating. You know, for example, I think Russian filmmakers could focus upon making movies showing how Russia and the United States, even the history of it. You know, I had a conversation with one of the leading art, film, sports individuals in Russia yesterday. Shkidov, I think is his name. And he was telling me the story of during the Civil War, the correspondence between Abraham Lincoln and Alexander II. And both in terms of freeing slaves, you know, getting rid of slavery at the same time, and you know the way and Russia played a significant role in the American Civil War. Well, that story is not known in the United States.
Эту историю у нас не знают.
Don't know it in Russia either.
Yeah,
Голливуд же захватил все. Голливуд захватил все.
Hollywood took over everything.
yeah,
Right now, they have a great movie, August, about World War II. But you know, they won't show it in America. I work with musicians a lot of years. Part of the kids, they wanted to go to United States, part of the bands play the music there. And they wanted to play there in English. They work with Jolie Turner.
Американские музыканты
Great American musicians that come to Europe
Yeah,
or
yeah.
worked there. And they all say, nobody waits for you in America. Not because you're bad musicians, not because you do a bad job, because you are Russian. They won't let you in because for America, critically important not to show normal,
Right.
just like Americans.
yeah,
We look like Americans. We are a European nation with a European mentality.
yeah,
с точки зрения географии гораздо интереснее.
And we're more interesting than Europe, but we look like Americans. We think in a different way. Americans will not accept us.
right.
Принимали как равных.
What do we need to do so they would take a sequel?
Well, and that's what I'm trying to do in these kinds of conversations. Have these conversations, start posting it on social media. If I was Russia, I would concentrate on having a more aggressive social media presence. That I understand some of the desire for censoring some of the social media platforms because to limit access to material that can be harmful to children. But there are platforms like BitChute, which the average person in Russia can't access, but creating content that gets out, particularly to the youth, where if nothing else, it becomes cool to be Russian. And you as a musician, I forgot what are your instruments?
Я не играю на
I don't play instruments.
You're a singer?
I,
Я
Okay,
исполнитель и сочиняю песни.
yes, he sings.
okay,
He sings. But all professional musicians can do better than me. But you say the right thing.
Я же блогер.
I'm a blogger also, on top of everything. I had different tries to make blogs in the English language.
Мои блоги на русском
My blogs in Russian,
расходятся
they go like all over Russian speaking YouTube.
yeah.
After Trump came, it was more loyal platform. I had 1 million subscribers. They deleted the
They
channel
deleted
completely.
you? Well, join the club. They deleted me too, okay?
Я знаю.
Yes, I know the story. But now,
I'm guilty of hate speech.
Такая же история, но кроме
same thing. But about YouTube, they deleted all the accounts of my kids, emails, everything. Everything that's connected to me. That's okay.
но как только ты начинаешь говорить,
But as soon as you start speaking English,
тебя пессимизируют.
they put you as a pessimist because you're Russian and speak for Russians.
С помощью алгоритмов цифровых
And today, with the modern algorithms,
перевод на любой язык,
any translation to any language, it's the simplest function.
но
But
хозяева алгоритма решают.
the owners of that algorithm, they decide
Испаноязычного
whether Spanish will hear you, English speaking will hear you,
отвечает американец,
and when American is speaking, yes, everybody will hear him. When a Russian is speaking, or Chinese, not American, Chinese origin, or Korean, but not from the south, but from the north, they won't show you.
Right.
есть возможность
They won't show it. And are there possibilities? Who owns those algorithms, and why are these algorithms are not subject to any laws?
Well, and that's where I think, if you will, Russian oligarchs, that those who have the wealth, the clout, can get involved with social media and start creating platforms. They may not get aired in the United States right now or even in Europe, but that's okay. Influence the global South, influence Africa, influence Asia. Western and Eastern Asia, because you know what I've detected is both with Russia and with China together as partners, you don't have this traditional colonial hegemonic attitude that we've got to go out and control and dominate and tell others what to do. Instead, it's more of how can we be partners? How can we help each other? How can we share? And, you know, the people in Africa, the people in South America, that's going to start resonating with. I mean, right now, what Trump is doing with his, you know, flexi military muscle against Venezuela and Colombia, that is going to alienate an entire continent, and it's creating, I think, a great opportunity for Russia and China to step into that and say, hey, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to be your friends.
А куда зайти? Где говорить?
Where to go to, where to speak, where the platforms. Americans are watching YouTube, Instagram, forbidden in Russia, and maybe TikToks.
Yeah,
Тоже купили.
They also bought it. Where should we speak? We have RT that blocked us.
well,
Blocked us everywhere, everywhere possible. As soon as our truth starts coming out, they immediately turn off the Tumblr. And you cannot influence, because it's a non-government formally platform. But you, as an ex-analyst from CIA, you know who they obey to. Pavel Durov, who was arrested in Paris.
Зачем, какими сообщениями к нему приходят?
He told the stories, and you cannot fight against that. Because it's a corporation, private corporation, they have private rules. Don't like it, don't use it. But you have billions in views.
В этот алгоритм
And not coming into that algorithm, we cannot
этот вопрос на сегодня
come to people to hear us. And that's unsolvable because our Russian oligarchs, they can say, bunch of our Russian oligarchs, they keep money not in Russia.
yeah.
They don't keep it there.
Well, we've got our own American oligarchs to contend with.
Но у нас есть свои олигархи, с которыми нужно сражаться.
You're speaking to me and not to him.
Но как бы вы говорите со мной, не с ними.
Can you hear her? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now you can hear. I said, my Russian's not that good. But no. But you know, it's a war of information, and while Russia may be at a disadvantage right now, I think once you recognize, hey, we've got a problem, we need to solve it, because on so many levels, Russia has been not just a leader, but a friend to the United States. I mean, let's face it, for more than 20 years, the U.S. astronauts could not get to the space station without Russia. Until, you know, Elon Musk showed up, it was like there was, you know, no other alternative. The U.S. lost that ability. Our industrial capability has shrunk. It hasn't grown. We are basically a financial economy, which candidly doesn't have a lot of depth to it and is fragile and vulnerable to other disruptions. But in contrast, I see Russia's leadership role as strengthening, solidifying. There's an element in which, you know, I'd say 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Russians tended to have an inferiority complex, or they didn't have the full confidence of, hey, I can compete with these guys. Now you recognize and say, you know what? Not only can I compete with them, I can beat them. And I think that's true. But I come back, this shouldn't be a competition of trying to outdo each other. It should be a collaborative partnership.
мы очень дружелюбный народ.
We're very friendly people, and truly we don't have colonial attitude that they said that in the West they said that by colonization we took over Siberia, but you know, you tell me colonial wars. We never had them. Maybe local faces, maybe local conflicts, but you compare it with the colonization that U.S. had. I have a phrase that I use over 10 years, that the Russian occupation, you have to earn it, because so-called occupation of Russia, we have investments, we have digital things, we have energy, we give gas, and starting from 19th, end of the 19th century, Russian Empire and Soviet Union would invest into the frontiers. Look at the Baltics. It was the face. The regular citizen of our country was feeding Baltics, that it would seem that we're a great country, that we're developing well. And that's our problem. We seem to be good for the people. We have to be good for our own, in our own country, because we depend on the point of view of other people. How would they approve it on the West? Would they like it or not? What would they say at the West? And, you know, how to overcome it? Well, I think with time, when we're going to have a point of our own assuredness. 2018 World Cup, Donbass already has war. Kiev already had the revolution. But our diplomats were able to keep soccer cup at our country. A lot of people came, and they saw Russia different.
Yeah.
They saw with their own eyes that Russia does not have bears on the street. We don't drink vodka every morning for breakfast. We drink, but not every morning and not for breakfast.
Yeah.
And we can't celebrate. We can't have events. And a lot of people were not, you know, they were spending time here as fun time. But, you know, this is all served as a next step to escalation, because West got afraid. They were afraid that we could become comfortable, convenient, interesting for other parts of the world. And at the same time, we don't try to take the sovereignty,
Yeah.
independence. We don't take away resources. We say, let's trade at the mutual profit. We could build in our country that Americans are trying to build for a long time, but still can achieve it. We have national republics. We have republics where Orthodox and Christianity are not the main religion.
Right.
We have different national languages. Not many people know in the United States, but Ukrainian language is the language of the national communication officially in Crimea. They have 3 languages: Russian, Ukrainian, and Crimean Tatarian. All government statues are in 3 languages. Nobody speaks there in Ukrainian language on political reasons, but we respect. We shouldn't give our Russian, Ukrainian culture to the West. It's a part of our culture. I give an example, Belarus. It's an independent state in their currency, with their politics, with their sovereignty. We were able to create one trade area. We can coexist as friends. How come Ukraine refused for it? That's a big question for me. What is expecting them at the West? And how should we understand that we are the center of those national interests, and that you don't have to fight for minerals at the West? You know, Americans were also looking at Great Britain. Look how it happened with you.
What about, so your role as, you have your own television show, and it's widely syndicated throughout Russia. What's your audience? What kind of ratings do you get?
Today our audience is a bit adults, because youth is in the internet. And to TV, people have to come. Same story in U.S.
Yeah, yeah.
It's adults. It's the audience that you say you don't have to prove them. We have to work with the youth, with kids, with teenagers. And they are today, the statistics, they watch less TV than we would experience it.
Well, as do I. In fact, I was talking with Judge Napolitano. He was here earlier this week. So when he was on Fox News, they might get, maybe 800,000 viewers, that for cable television. And to have that, you had cameramen, sound engineers, people handling the lighting, a big overhead, of a whole structure you have to pay for. Now, it's like, put up your computer camera, put on either headphones or a good microphone, and you don't have to pay all these people. And yet, he's probably reaching more people now, having more influence now than he ever did when he was at Fox News. And that's starting to be repeated across the board. So one advantage you may have is with your television station, you can also get into a streaming platform, which expands the audience.
Я этим и занимаюсь.
I do exactly that.
Yeah.
Я на телевидении попал из интернета. Я изначально...
I got into TV from internet. I don't have journalist education. I was noticed because they saw my video blogs. Now I got back to the internet and streams, and it exactly gives the audience, the views, the people that recognize me in the street, some TV, some internet. More than that, I have a Telegram channel for 500,000 subscribers, and out of them, 80% are the audience that they don't know that I work on TV. And they're surprised. It's completely different types of audiences. You gotta work everywhere, everywhere possible. But I have a bigger task. I'm going to English-speaking audience, but it doesn't work there yet. But what you write about is that we don't use here ourselves those possibilities.
Right.
Because people like me that are doing internet, both TV and others, not many. Mr. Solovyov, he's on internet, he's popular, and TV, he's popular.
Yes.
Not many. And when you tell our TV host that without internet, it won't work to change the relationship of our society, I can only applaud you.
Yeah. Well, you're fortunate. You have a face made for television. Do you understand that expression? And I was told I have a face made for radio.
I also work at the radio, but I don't have stream. But I have stream in the. The question is not a face. It's actually we often told now, and I also teach students the multimedia, modern multimedia. That modern person who watches, they don't like beautiful pictures, glossy. That the host is supposed to be looking nice, looking good, ideal speech. No, they relate now to the trust.
Yeah.
And a trust is like what you call. And if you have some features, minuses, you make a mistake, you can stumble, that's okay. Point is what you say, what you carry, the message you
Right.
carry, not the way you carry it. And it's important today.
Well-
But that's not all, not for all.
And that's what's important about, I can tell just in our conversation, you're not some empty-headed musician. You're not just another pretty face. You have an intelligence, you have an experience, you have an insight into society, and you're thoughtful. And that actually, that's what's really, I think, attractive to people, what you're talking about.
Это вот я пытаюсь оправдать себя за...
I'm trying to justify myself in 1994 when we were trying to go to American sailors to exchange for the chewing gum. Because the children, childish mistakes, you got to fix them. It sounds funny, but when you truly understand what was the distance that the country was almost falling apart. I didn't do it because I didn't have the medals on my hands.
Yeah.
I don't know. But kids were doing that with the medals for victory and change it for jeans and chewing gum. I still remember it, and I get cold in my heart because we didn't think it was abnormal. I remember I studied English because we had American missionary students who were teaching English in schools, and then it was normal. Now I understand it was a soft power.
Yeah.
They didn't speak one word in Russian. We didn't have a chance not to study. We couldn't talk the other way with them. That's why we studied English quite quick. And that really opened up the eyes. But then later, when you understand the true targets, and I'm 100% sure that these young kids, they wanted good intent.
Yeah.
But we understand why they were sent there. America had to be, that we had to be in love with America to sell our own country to become just like Americans. And we don't need to be like Americans. We need to be like Russians. We need to be ourselves.
Yeah.
It's impossible that Americans would like us being Americans. They have to like us. You have to like yourself and stay Russian. And that's where we have a great search. We're trying to find who is a Russian person, what idea we have. A lot of people criticize our constitution for forbiddance for ideology. I think that you cannot put ideology from top. It comes from the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
The society must birth it. That means if it's not there, that the society is not ready. So we're in a search. When a special operation takes place, what happens in Ukraine, it helps to unite the society. We finally have whites and reds, and we're finished with the civil war. Now we have both reds and whites killing Nazis, and that hurts because on the other side, it's the same us, but forgotten that they are Russians.
Yeah.
You probably don't know, but there's such a phrase that when Ukrainian got to see God, and he says, how come you gave everything to Russians, big country, wealth, oil, gas, great Russian language, and you haven't given us anything? And God says, you're wrong. I gave you the same thing. He says, when? When? And God answers him, when you were Russian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me close out with one last question. What is the attitude, let's say, from what you've detected with the people that are 35 years and younger with respect to the war as it is in Ukraine? And I ask that because there are some in the West that suggest that the youth are rebelling against it, they're rejecting it, they're fleeing the country, that there's not support for the special military operation. How would you answer them?
I would be very objective. We have, war is bad. Russian people remember that war is very bad.
Yeah.
Do Russians want war? Question has given no, a strong no. And truly, part of the youth normally, for instincts, they don't want to die. They don't have that instinct of self-sacrifice due to the well-being of good, especially for youth. It comes with age. But when you go to the front line, you see all ages there. Young people and both adults, matured. And to understand the true attitude of our youth to the special operation, you should not ask questions to those who run from the calling to the military, went to Georgia or other countries when there was mobilization. But you have to ask those and go who is at the front line. That's who you need to ask. There, 80, 90%, 70%, there's volunteers. Their own initiative, they go and they serve. And that's where not a lot of youth. I have a great example. When we came with the humanitarian help, I had a young guy, about 27, 28 years old, and he said that he's from Siberia, from Novosibirsk. And he said that, Ruslan, he recognized me. I've been watching your movies and the YouTube, and your materials influenced me, because that's why I became a volunteer. And what you say then, what you put on the air, it's not just a word. It's in people, becomes into activity, into action, and you understand the responsibility that you take. Those are that words. because your word can lift you up,
он рискнет своей
and they will risk their lives
ради своей семьи.
for the family, for the country. And it's not easy to live with that, because you have to think about every word that is spoken online. But there's no other way,
Потому что иначе
because otherwise we're not going to find our own, and we want to find ourselves.
Great. Ruslan, thank you for your time. Great conversation. I hope, I'm sure that through the auspices of the International Unity Club, we may attract a few American fans who say, hey, Ruslan's worth listening to.
и возможно когда-нибудь на
And possibly sometimes in English language, because our thoughts for American audience would be close, would be easier than it happens today. Thank you very much for your time. Yes.
Thank you.